Welcome to the penthouse. We're going to be doing a ban list video today. I know it's a pretty hot topic. What are we going to be talking about first, guys?
Let's start with the most divisive topic, Tadpuff. Where do
Kill
you
it.
want to see
Kill it.
Tadpuff?
Kill it.
Uh,
Zero.
totally fair and balanced. It's totally fair and balanced. It should stay at 3.
All right, sent to TARDIS is what I'm hearing.
I do not think that the consistency or the reliability of lock combo is the problem. The problem is the repeatability. Most decks should be able to manage 2 Lockagons on the field, even if their board was blown up. It may take a few turns, but most decks are equipped nowadays to deal with 2 Lockagons. The problem is that if you only kill one or you don't kill either of them, they are just going to put out 2 more Lockagons on the following turn.
I agree
So
with
what's
this.
the answer?
I agree with this, Q, and I'm going to comment on this. I think that Tadpuff getting banned actually does affect the repeatability, and I agree that that is the primary problem, not its consistency. So I think we're in agreement on the problem, but not so much the solution.
Yes, hitting Tadpuff does remove some of that repeatability in that if you do clear both of the Lockagons, they can't just immediately lock combo again. The problem is that if you don't kill both of those Lockagons, then you still lose.
I agree.
I don't disagree that Tadpuff is not a problem, but I don't agree that it is the problem.
I think then we're in 100% agreement then. I don't think Tadpuff alone does enough. I've heard the argument that Tadpuff getting banned kills the deck, which I think is
That's not true.
far from true.
Absurd.
It's
Yeah,
just not true at all.
Absurd.
I think removing Tadpuff is a pretty good single target as far as hitting the consistency of the combo, as well as hitting the repeatability, which is actually the problem. If I had to pick one hit, I would say it's Tadpuff to 0, but I don't think that that is enough.
Like, Tadpuff is just the easiest way to get into lock combo. You don't have to wait a turn compared to other options. Hard ascending over like a foamy or hard ascending over a fish combo. I think it's just Tadpuff enables it to do it. It just gets to be ignorant in its play.
Yeah, it turns a board of nothing into a board of 2/2 drops with at least 1 pop. The bigger issue, though, than just the fact that that board exists is the fact that they threaten that board every turn. And I think if we're talking about Tadpuff or hits the lock in general, the conversation should really be stopping the repeatability, like Q has said.
Yeah.
And I think Tadpuff does that. Not quite perfectly, but it at least gives the opponent some agency, which I feel is the big problem here. Opponent really has no say in whether or not you win the lock matchup or not. It's did you stick a guy or did you have Tadpuff, and that's it. This at least gives the opponent some agency in that if they can keep you off a guy, they keep you off the combo for a turn.
I think it's fine if a lock player gets to set up their lock combo through the meme that was kind of designed, baked into the quote unquote archetype into the support wave. And I think that's where a lot of the balance was going into, was like, okay, were you supposed to set up this fish board? And then you transition from fish into double lock, and then you're winning. But why do all those steps? Just go Tadpuff into lock instead.
Do we think Tadpuff really needs to go to Tartarus? Do we think it needs to be limited?
Me personally, I think it could be limited and then we could see what happens, because a lot of the problem with Locagon is the repeatability, like we keep saying. But the main issue with Tadpuff in the black deck is that you can just go Tadpuff, and then if they have Aphrodite in the hand or field, they can just repeat it, like use the effect, and then search another Tadpuff. So they can either block a Gorgon's Gaze and then use that second Tadpuff to go into lock and continue the combo anyway, or save that Tadpuff to go into another Locagon the next turn if you get rid of their board. And also, Tadpuff is still searchable, so like Chautauqua,
I agree with that 100%. Like you get one bite at the apple, but you shouldn't be able to have 3 repeatable special cast and then ascend. Like that's how they do it, right? Like it's just lock combo over and over and over again. And there's only so many times that you can disrupt it. Like I get it, it's interruptible, but you eventually run out of resources. You don't find the pieces, and then the locked player is just going to go full combo. I would be okay with putting this at 1. I would like to see it banned, but I don't know if everyone is in agreement with that.
I would prefer it banned as well, but I think putting it to 1 does enough in that it introduces a new choke point for the combo. Like MG was mentioning, you can just Gorgons a Tadpuff, and that actually means something.
I would love to see Tadpuff and the other Tad to be bans, but I can see it limited, especially if there are more hits to at the Afro lock deck, which I think we will talk about right now. So what would you guys like to see hit alongside?
These are
I-
great questions.
It's a great question. I feel like one of the Lockagons is probably, I can imagine getting hit. I don't really know which one though. Like,
I
because
mean, it's Champ. It's got to be Champ. Champ Lockdown,
I
definitely. If
think
one's
it's
gonna
actually-
get hit, it has to be Champ Lockdown.
Q, go ahead.
I think I am going to put my vote in for Frostfall Locagon.
I agree.
And that's generally because it is more problematic to deal with in most sports states. It's much easier to deal with a 5-7 than it is to deal with a potentially 14th 6. And if Frostfall Locagon was limited and you got rid of it, then your opponent would essentially be playing 2-drop 5s from that point on, because their win condition becomes spam the field with 5-7s. And that is more manageable, I think, than potentially getting out dealing with 2 14-6s that each get a pop whenever your opponent plays an Ambro.
And I agree with that take completely. And I want to clarify that I don't think the deck should be killed. And I don't think that these hits actually kill the deck. I mean, we have the Fish to replace Tadpuff, introduce more points of counterplay if they have to focus on Fish. There are plenty of ways the deck can pivot. And I still think it would be one of the top contenders with these hits.
All right, so we're in agreement that OG lock.
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
I think this is fine. I don't want to kill the deck. I don't want to kill
Oh,
any.
yeah.
No.
I think this format needs so little, and I think doing this removes a lot of the non-games. It gives agency back to the opponent in this matchup, and so I think this is perfect.
Yeah, I think I want to talk a little bit more about that. I think Livestream has been a very good set. I think design-wise, we've seen a lot of cool things. We've seen less fives style decks. I mean, we still see good stuff, obviously. I don't think that's ever really going to go away, but we're seeing stuff like Hermes combo. We're seeing Lock. We're seeing Morfrost enough that, like, I enjoy this set. I enjoy the design. The main thing I don't like about this set is that we have a lot of cards that pair too well with these new decks that are being focused on that make them go over the top and a little bit more powerful. And I would like in this ban list to see those decks get tuned down a little bit, but not killed.
I think it's less of an issue of power and definitely not an issue of deck diversity. And when I see the conversation about ban lists start to revolve around these points, it kind of frustrates me a little bit because I think really the only issue with the format is not that these decks are unbeatable by any means, and that is very clearly demonstrated with top cut representation and stuff like this. Hermes winning a tournament. I think the issue is the non-games and the removal of player agency in a lot of these matchups. Sometimes you just can't do anything about it. And I feel like skill expression in some of these matchups, and not all the time, but just in a lot of situations, is at an all-time low. And so that's kind of frustrating as a player. But I think with some minor adjustments, this format in the set and the card design in general is in a great place. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I've scooped a lot more games this format than any other format before.
That's very true.
Already by turn 4, I'm like, I got absolutely washed by they did their combo. I got Gorgons or something, and now I'm out of the game. It just sucks.
Yep.
So anyways, off to one of the other top decks, Morfrost, or just Frost in general, but we'll start with Morfrost first. What would you guys like?
I think you should start here.
Resident Morfrost player?
Okay, so there are 3 different options for potential hits for Morfrost. Lycan to 1 is the most reasonable and obvious one. Greatly reducing the reliability and consistency of the deck is going to reduce its power level generally. Lycan to 1, of course, doesn't really kill the card. You can still find it off of Narpoon. You can grab it back with Keon, that kind of thing. And I also would not be opposed to this as a Morfrost player because it's generally inoffensive to the actual gameplay. Lycan enables you to find your combo pieces and pair up Morfrost that want to be together, but not having it is not make or break for the deck at all. If you can find your other Morfrost and through other means, one Lycan is enough. The second option is Chimera to 1. This is the option that I prefer to get with a grain of salt. This is also one that would probably require quite a bit of testing from the internal team because my brain may or may not be correct. The idea behind it is that you reduce the power level of the Morfrost boards and that they don't get 3 5s out alongside a Terror. Now, if they want to swarm, they have to go through the Scorpios, so you end up with 3 2s and a Terror. Or you have to play for Terror and A-Bomb if you want that board presence. Like I said, this is one that probably requires quite a bit of testing, but is my preferred pick. And finally, Bat to 1 is one that I really don't like. Yes, it greatly hurts Morfrost in that you don't get very many of the explosive plays. You have to rely on Keon a lot more because you really need to use Bat more than once in a game. This, to me, I really don't like as a Morfrost player because it just removes a lot of the fun aspect of the game or of the deck. I like being able to decide what Morfrost I'm pitching, which ones I want to revive, and sort of managing which ones I have in hand, which ones are in Underworld, which ones are on the field. And that enables me to do that. So unlike with Chimera, which has the replacement in Scorpio, that doesn't have a cleared substitute. So if we're erring on the side of caution, I would generally say Lycan to 1, though my vote would be for Chimera to 1.
And how do you feel about, I want to throw an option out there, is Narpoon to 1?
Does nothing.
I've
So I'll be honest, it does very little for the deck or to the deck.
I mean, you can't say it doesn't. It obviously does. But
It does something, but
it also hurts the other Frost decks, which is what I like. About
it does. But for Morphra specifically, I found that in the deck you really want to be minimizing your other normal casts that are not named Morphrost, and you have to have a very specific reason to have another Alestral in there. Narpoon usually makes its way in there because it is always a good starter for the deck. And Cryoverm variants, of course, you have the Cryoling, which can instantly ascend into Cryoverm, which is one of your win conditions. In Iwoolly variants, you have Catarant, and then you also play the Brumalinx and then sometimes Ursicle Champ, because those are good casts off of the Iwoolly, but they are not necessarily good normal casts. Like I said, you need a good reason to have normal casts that are not Morphrost in your deck.
But I also want to hammer the point home is that Narpoon has seen play for since ever. It's like the best searcher for Frost, which is already one of the best elements. And it's not just about Morphrost in general.
I think your argument about it hitting other Frost decks, which I'm assuming you're talking about Blizz, it affects those decks, but it doesn't address the problem. I don't think it does. It's very significant, and I don't think that how long it's been relevant in the meta should really be a metric we're looking at. I think Morphrost in particular, of all the meta decks, is the most fair. It's the most skill intensive besides maybe Solar, and it leads. It causes the least amount of non-games. And I think that's the crux of the issue here. I don't think Narpoon is a hit. I think it's fine where it's at. And I think most people would agree with that. And I think of all the hits to Morphrost, Lycan to 1 makes the most sense to me. Just that card in particular is overtuned. But I think the deck as a whole is in a fine enough spot right now. I think you could argue that it needs to be hit in the context of other hits so that it doesn't just dominate the meta. And I think Lycan to 1 would be the best hit because you could argue that it kills Morphrost as a package, but it doesn't affect the pure list too much or the Iwoolly build too much. And I think those should be allowed to exist and should take priority over protection over, like, say, just like a 5-card Morphrost splash and another.
I definitely echo what Adam's saying in regards to Morphrost specifically. I think Lycan going to 1 really hinders the splashability of the Morphrost package in general. But I think Chimera, if you put Chimera to 1, you kind of really kneecap a lot of what the Morphrost engine can do, especially even in like a pure build. But putting Lycan to 1 makes it less searchable. Lycan in general, if you just look at it as a card, is really ridiculous in terms of what it searches and what the costs are. And if you compare it to other cards in the game that like tutor things out or search other things, I personally would hit Lycan. I think I don't want to kill the deck entirely. And I think handicapping the deck by putting Chimera to 1 or 2 or whatever does a lot more damage than putting Lycan to 1.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think the same goes for Bat, except even more extreme. Like those two, Bat especially, I think are fine where they are. I don't want to kill the deck, and I think that would do it. I think Lycan to 1 is a good spot.
The decision of how to hit Morphrost is really going to come down to the discretion of the development team, because, like you said, the deck itself is not one of the problematic ones. It is skill intensive. It doesn't cause very many non-games, but it does have a really high win rate, which may not be something that's desirable. And so it's not necessary from the point of player sentiment, but it may be important based on the statistics. And like I said, it's based on what the development team thinks of how well Morphrost has been performing.
It needs to catch a stray, basically. That's pretty much it. Like, if the other decks get hit, then this deck has to get hit as well, as it's one of the top decks.
Yeah, a hit to Morphrost is going to be reasonable.
Okay, so let's talk about the other miscellaneous Frost decks. How do you guys feel about Iwoolly?
So I do think that Iwoolly is strong. Like, some of the boards it can create in turn 1 is like some of the strongest in the game. The ability it has to swarm the board with 1-cost Frost Celestrals is just something that we haven't really seen. Like, the closest thing we've seen to that, like, swarm ability is like a Void Champ. which, we already know how that went with early Firestorm, but like it's kind of kicked up a little bit. But the caveat to it is that it's kind of a little bit of randomness to it. Like you have to high roll to hit those kind of boards. But I can't say, me personally, I don't think I would hit it, at least not right now. I think in the way it is, I think itself, I think it's fine. I think it's more of the supporting cards, which I think we'll talk about in a minute, but more of the supporting cards that kind of help make it as strong as people see it.
Yeah, I think it's fine, honestly.
Yeah, it is high variance. I don't feel like it's super overpowering unless it is really high rolling and getting a second Catamaran into a second Ivory or getting Snowlight into Aspharal, that kind of thing. So the card itself, I don't have like a strong feeling towards it. Like I said, it has high variance, which might be justifiable for a limit or a semi-limit, but it's not necessary, I would say.
Okay, so now on to Tadflow. How do you guys feel about Tadflow? I have some
Kill the
strong
card.
opinions, but let's see.
I think kind of launching off from what I said before of like, I think Iwoli is fine by itself, but its supporting cards kind of make it what it is. I think Tadflow is one of those supporting cards that kind of boost Iwoli into the place of power of where it is, kind of, because I think being able to kind of turbo into Frost 2-drops really, really change how that deck plays, because it can kind of unbrick a hand, right? Because sometimes you'll have Aspharal in hand or Iwoli, and being able to just go normal cast and go for effect. It is a choke point, yeah, but like I think it's just it can lead to very strong boards if left unchecked.
Yeah. I think it is both a starter and an extender in the fact that, unlike Tadpuff, it can do its effect when it's brought back from the underworld with Iwoli, or you can start with it to go into the Iwoli in your hand, unbrick your hand, or unbrick your hand in other ways by combining it with Blizz, by going into Aspharal, because then Aspharal gets to mill 4 more, and you just start this Congo line that all stems from just, hey, I milled a very innocent Tadflow, and now it's able to do all this.
Having picked up Blizz recently, Tadflow is a massive problem. And Tadflow Iwoli in opening hand, it doesn't matter what the rest of your hand is. That is the quickest keep in that deck. That turn 1 is the most insane opening I think the game can produce right now at all. And I've just steamrolled a lot of opponents with that opening hand. And I think part of that, besides it being turn 1, I think part of the problem with a lot of these Frost decks is we don't actually have on here right now is Whiteout. It's a better Chains, it's a better Divine Blessing. It makes the deck so much more ignorant than it already is. And so I don't think it necessarily needs to be hit if we hit the surrounding cards in Frost. But I think that card is a recipe for disaster.
I guess where do you guys like to see Tadflow go?
Man, it.
I think we have to ban it. I think the boards it could create is just really strong. Like Adam said, like you could just see a Tadflow and Iwoli in hand, and you just keep it, and then it could just make ridiculous boards.
And so, just to clarify, then, so what's stopping Tadpuff from getting hands? Compared to
The fact that it at 1 creates a valid choke point. There's actual interaction to be had with Tadpuff at 1, and it makes a meaningful difference. Tadflow to 1 just makes it less consistent. It doesn't remove the problem. Tadpuff to 1 actually creates a tangible difference. Not that I think it shouldn't be banned. I would personally put it up in the top row there. But
I think all of us agreed that it should be banned, but I think reasonably it's probably just going to get limited, right?
I think
if this is a wish list and not a prediction, I would put it up in banned.
So
I think
move Tadpuff up to bans?
I would say so.
Okay.
For the sake of symmetry too,
Yeah, that's my main thing is they're both war criminals in their own right, and they both work insanely well with their elements, and I feel like it's just become a design issue in both elements of these cards exist and are a problem for any new cards that come out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
100%. And for one more hit to Blizz that I want to kind of steer the conversation in this direction, I think Blistrix itself is fine. I think Cedar's fine. I think Snowlet's fine. And I'm mentioning these because a lot of people bring these cards. I think the real problem, rather the solution that I think is the most elegant, would be hitting Aspharal. I think putting Aspharal to 1.
Yeah, I agree.
Putting Aspharal to 1 makes it so that the order of your mills actually matters. You can get around this. You could still high roll. The deck can still function, but it removes a lot of Snowlet into Aspharal, into Blizz, into Double Cedar, into whatever. I think Aspharal is just, although in a vacuum, it's not the problem. I think if you look at the deck as a whole, this is a very elegant solution. as far as hitting the fewest amount of cards possible.
It hits the
I think
theory.
Aspral the one.
Another thing is that people aren't playing Blizzard 3, they're playing it at 2. And honestly, most high Wooly decks most players are looking to just beat you to death with 2-drops. They're not
Yep.
trying to go for the full, like the super extended ceiling. They're going for the mid tier. I'm going to set up Stadium, I'm going to set up my 9s, and I'm just going to beat you. And Aspral 1 does kill a lot of that momentum paired with Tadflow, which also gets into the Aspral super easily.
Absolutely.
And how do you get back to the whiteout? Does anyone else have an issue with whiteout?
It absolutely needs to go to 1. Like, whiteout is such a problem. Being able to just say like Gorgon's Gaze doesn't exist, PTA doesn't exist.
Like Earthquake.
Yeah, there's a
doesn't
lot
exist.
of like non-targeting removal in the format, but a lot of the removal that exists in your toolbox for any given deck, like it targets, right? So I think whiteout is just such a problem.
And I think there's something to be said about Blizz being meta for so long. I know I kind of ruled that out as a metric we should look at earlier.
Yeah.
But people are getting sick of this. It's kind of ridiculous.
I want Blizz gone.
Go ahead.
I do really want Blizz gone. And like I do agree that it needs to be hit. I don't necessarily agree that Aspral 2-1 is the best, but I also don't have a strong opinion on any other suggestions. I do also really like the a whiteout hit, because the amount of insulation that provides in a deck that is already frustrating to deal with is, you need as much interaction to go through as possible into decks that utilize whiteout. And those decks having whiteout means that they can just negate some of your interaction, which
Absolutely.
is not good.
The very fun question, is Cedar fine? Yes, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
It's fine.
People,
Cedar Soar is at best like what, a 6-8
Mhm.
under Stadium. Like 2-6-8 vanillas alongside 2 other Ascensions is going to be a problem. But if you just have the 2-6-8 vanillas, like that is manageable.
Yeah. And again, we don't want to kill any of these decks. That's not the goal here.
all right, so let's move on to I guess the third best deck, right? Solar. How do you
Debatable.
guys feel? Well,
Some people would argue that it's the third best, but I
we
think
can say
with us, I
over
guess,
the
I don't
whole
know.
format, because let's be real, the last ban list wasn't targeting anything, right? It was targeting
No.
the generic cards. So
Right.
would you say, like, historically, like Solar is probably the third best deck?
Yeah, I would. I'm if we're
I'd
counting
say so, yeah.
Blizz and Morfrost as one.
Like Frost,
Sure.
Frost
I think-
Scoop. It's hard
yeah,
to say like what Frost deck is different from each other, right? It's like,
Morfrost. If we're like, we can lump Morfrost and Morfrost Iwilly all into one category if we
Yeah.
want. I would say it's Lock, Morfrost, and Blizz are the big three currently. And the reason Solar has taken a backseat is because it has a terrible matchup into those Frost decks, or at least Morfrost, in my experience.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very powerful deck, and I think that in the context of these other hits, it does deserve something.
And it has very powerful tools.
Solar, in my opinion, is better than every other deck besides those 3.
Absolutely.
So it's right at number 4. The problem is that it realistically doesn't beat the 3 above it. So it's like the top 4 decks always beat the decks below them, but Solar always loses to the top 3.
Yeah, but let's
100%.
talk about probably one of the strongest tools that Solar got is Solar Burst. This is just EQ, right? Like this is just
It's one
100%.
cost with upside. The card is insane. And I don't think, and foretelling another Solar Burst off of Solar Burst, just being able to multiple times in a game remove something for one cost is the reason Solar has been performing as well. And I think it can still perform if this card gets hit. I just think this one Spirit removal card really pushes it over the edge. And I don't think one Spirit removal, non-targeting removal with upside, should really exist.
It should just go to 1, right? Like
I think putting it at 1 is a good solution.
It's one of those cards where it's perfectly fine, I think, to not get banned, because in theory it's a cool card. It's just in multiples it gets out of hands, combined with the fact that it can just play so much removal, right? Solar is just removal the deck. There's Nova Card has Solar Burst. It still plays EQ, or it can play EQ. Shout out to Swole. Or resting, it's playing just all the removal in the world, and Solar Burst is probably just the easiest access to it.
Q, I know you have some opinions on Solar Burst.
My thoughts are basically that exactly. In multiples, it is a problem. At one, like it makes Solar, the deck that can play 3 limited removal runes.
It's also just such easy combo with Tornajin or Winjin. Just Solar Burst, remove their guy, and then okay, I'm gonna play Winjin. I know exactly what to call. Like it's so busted.
Foretelling in the Foretell deck is good.
Yeah, who could
Believe it or not.
Who could have thunk?
And when you slap it on an Earthquake, it's even better. So yeah, I think this card should be at 1. I think there's some design mistakes made here.
I think there's some math mistakes done. But speaking of math, how do you guys feel about Corvishine?
It's fine.
I think it's fine. It's the thing that really pushed Solar kind of over the edge of where it was before, but I think it's fine. Truth be told, I think the problem is just kind of how it can stack up the foretells with the other cards, like that foretell. So like the whole Celestial line as a whole, it combos really well with Solar Burst, as we've kind of talked about. Turning a Foretell 4 into a Foretell 7, that's like guaranteed to hit.
Yep, insane.
But like, I think generally it's fine, and I think it's just a nice thing for the deck to kind of have its own identity.
It's just the cornerstone of that deck identity now. It is what the deck is, right?
Well, yeah, it's always been a Foretell deck, and Corvishine really is an insane thing for that mechanic. A Shuffler and the card that buffs your Foretell is insane. And I think Solar should be allowed to be good.
Yeah.
And I think Corvishine is a big part in that. And I think it's fine where it's at.
Yeah, definitely agree. And now on to the other line in the room, Celestlio.
Leave it alone. Leave it alone. It's fine.
I think it depends, right? Because we're kind of viewing it in a vacuum of like, oh, we know only live stream stuff. I think there is potential because we already know in Sunstrike that one of the divines coming into the game, Ares, will have a Celestial line. So it's just like, we don't know how strong or how weak that line is going to be. And it's just like, I don't know how much the current Leos are going to affect that, you know?
Leo style.
Exactly. I don't think any of these decisions on what we predict will come in the future. Otherwise, all of this could change. We have to view this as in a vacuum. And I think in a vacuum right now, live stream format, Celestlio is more than fine to stay. The only real impactful hit would be banning it, which I think is too much. I've heard people say put it to 1. That does absolutely nothing. I completely disagree with that. I think Celestlio is fine where it is.
That's fair. I think my main concern is also just the future proof of it. As we know what's coming, the Neblio line is designed to work with itself, and it now has 9 more copies of itself. And I think that's very scary.
Depends. It all depends.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So just fine for now where it's at.
Yep.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
Like, I do agree that Celestlio is fine. In the current meta, Solar hasn't been performing super hot, but I still have my opinion from early on in this format that I think 2-drops are generally the sweet spot for where Alestrals should be at. 3-drops are a little bit too overpowering once they get played. Combat is still quite important, and against 2-drops, you can realistically change combat math in a way where your guys can still swing over their guys. When you're dealing with a 3-drop, you have to have hard removal, which some decks may struggle with. Like I said, I think banning it is a little too much right now, but I also don't think it's the healthiest card still.
I think we're in agreement here because Foretell 4, non-targeting removal, and adding all those cards to hand is unbelievably strong, and I don't think that's future-proofed at all. I think we'll see a time where Celestlio needs to go, but I think since we're looking at this in the context of live stream format, and that's all we really do, I think leave it where it is, and I think we would agree with that.
It wins the game on the spot if it gets its effect off, right? Like, we're in agreement on that.
Usually,
it just pretty much wins.
It's like 8 times out of 10, probably.
That angle. I guess we'll just say it's fine where it's at for now in the context of this meta. It's definitely just something to be mindful of, though. Very much a very powerful card. I mean, I think it's almost stronger than Fargeist, and if, Celestlio gets an easier way to get into it, then it's going to be even of a bigger problem,
Yep, all ifs and buts, but
yeah. So let's move on to the next deck. A breakout deck, I think. Not many people, did we really expect Hermes to be as good as it is?
I know we didn't at the start of the format. I know we had our doubts. Even though Aviolith is a crazy card, I think it just kind of flew under the radar a little bit. Not a lot of people were playing it. And then, post Kasumi, we go into the webcams, we see consistent top eights from two players, and then eventually turns into a win. So,
well, I think that deck is extremely cool and extremely fair and extremely fun to play and extremely fun to play against. I don't think that deck deserves to be hit at all in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
I agree.
it's pretty based. I think. I mean, obviously, like Avilif is a little strong, but like realistically, I mean, when you look at the deck as a whole, I think that deck is fine and very fun to like pilot and go against.
It's more than fair.
Yeah,
it's allowed to be good, and good players like Y Rebellion are allowed to play it or should be allowed to play it and win. And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And I think that win demonstrates that this format is salvageable and that these decks aren't unbeatable. It's just that they create too many non-games. And I congrats to him for that win. The deck's awesome, and it should be kept where it's at.
I think I would like to talk about removal next. Do you guys think removals should be bumped up or bumped down? Specifically, EQ and Laurels, the more generic removal. Obviously, we went over Solar Burst earlier.
This is a difficult question. If you want to go,
I think they are fine right now. Changing how many removal spells are in the format is going to have significant impacts on the meta, and without a ton of dedicated testing, even a small change of moving one of the removal runes to 2 copies could be super significant and may not lead towards a healthier meta.
It could be enough to push us back to 5s, and I don't want that. I don't think anyone wants that. I think they're fine where they are right now, but I think most people would agree.
And I think generally in most matchups, there's going to be enough counterplay that are not named Earthquake or resting on your laurels for you to deal with whatever your opponent does, especially if we decide to hit Lakagon and Blistrix these ways.
I like the design philosophy of more archetype specific and in-engine removal that Livestream has kind of put us towards. I'm hopeful about the future as far as removal goes. I think right now we're in a good spot.
And let's talk about the other removal card that is currently at 1, right? Race
it's at 1.
It should just go to 3, right? Like it should just go to, like no one's gonna play it.
It serves its time.
It doesn't make Thunder good.
Yeah,
it doesn't make Thunder good. It can come back. It's perfectly
they
fine.
wouldn't even play it, right? Like would like
Most likely not. You could make an argument for it, but like no, I don't
It's
think
not
you
worth
should.
Like the best thing you can do with it now is trigger Champ Gattlebolt, and that's not good.
that's only you and your brain rot.
You have to be fitting in Jolton and Mount Olympus in a deck that's already filled up with a ton of runes. You just don't have room for that.
Yeah. All right. So I guess one of the last cards I wanted to really talk about before we really deviate on like opinions. What about Viscerus? How do you guys feel about Viscerus still at 2? Well, 2 quote unquote, because it has its Firestorm copy.
Oh, you mean worse Aephros? Yeah, that can come back to 3.
Yeah. It's fallen off, huh?
You mean Chimera can exist and you could have 9 Aephroses in a deck, but you can't play 3 Vis? Come on. Yeah, this is a no-brainer.
Viscerus does have the benefit of buffing itself up to be more than 5, but I think that is perfectly fine when its ability to swarm is tied to being able to swing over something and then casting that second guy in defense where it's immediately threatened. I think it's perfectly fine, even if it has that special bonus of potentially being better than other 5s when you go established board versus established board.
I think that's just kind of wraps up our thoughts on at least the current format before the December ban list happens. Overall, I do think the top 3 decks, which if you want to bundle Frost together, would be like Lock, Frost, and then Solar. I think bumping those down a little bit would kind of lead to a healthier, like a meta state, just by itself. But also taking off things like Race to the Top for sure, and Viscerus, we'll have to see how that goes out. Those could also come back in some capacity and kind of boost both Earth and Thunder a little bit as well to kind of put it closer to where some of the elements are right now.
I think that we agree on, maybe this is kind of weird, but we agree on the solution, but maybe not the problem. Because I don't really think power level is so much what we're trying to achieve with most of these hits. I think it really is an issue of just player experience. And otherwise, I think the format's in a really good place. And so that's why I'm so invested in this conversation in general. As you can see in the Discord server, if you're going to go catch up on those messages, I don't recommend it. But I said, my main issue is the non-games that are occurring. And I think this list would definitely fix that for the most part, at least from where I'm standing. But otherwise, I think this format's great, and I'm very hopeful for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is just the same thing. It's a lot of these cards that we want hit. It is a little bit power level, but it's also like Solar Burst. Solar has not been putting up numbers lately, but Solar Burst is clearly powerful, and it is an issue, right? Like it is just free removal, and even if it's not good enough, I think the fact that it's allowed to run around, stuff like Whiteout being ignorant. I think a lot of these cards that we have on the list just allowed players to just be more ignorant with their combos, and that's just what we as a testing group are frustrated with, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
it comes down to skill expression and back and forth interactive gameplay, and that's what we're trying to facilitate here with this this wish list, as it were.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Tell us what you guys think of the list. Obviously, share your opinions down below, even if we may disagree. I'm sure someone will come argue with you down in the comments.
And that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, of course, keep it civil. Um,
Conversation is good though.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm happy to engage in any back and forths
Yeah.
about this list. I think we did a good job here, but I want to hear everyone's opinions. So
Yeah, we need to get the whole community to more talk about this because it is Banlist season. Yeah, it's an exciting part to always talk about. We love speculating.
hell yeah.
But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.